So Vikram, we've been talking for quite some time now about a lot of stuff, and specifically about the non-dual angle to life. What is actually what it is about, and what kind of help it can bring to life. What kind of change in life, and you've been passionate about the topic for many years, and then we started exchanging about it. Instead of me bringing answers, I would like you to give me some answers, Vikram. And then, if I ask you the question, what is your take on it? What does it bring to you? You've been passionate about what exactly?
I think there are two aspects to this. One is actually natural curiosity for what this life is about, like the principle of life. Like it's just like a question that's been there before I even know, like maybe since primary school, so that's been one aspect of it, like what is this about. And then the second one was driven by suffering, like a desire for suffering to reduce or eliminate. So I think these are two parallel motivations for non-duality. So where it started was, there was no sort of conscious interest in non-duality like the way it is now understood. What happened was there was once a sort of a experiential recognition of another perspective of life where things are no longer solid, the unity of all things, seeing that the sense of me is also not a compulsory part of the experience. So like a very profound, life-altering a few hours, and then that in itself demonstrated that it's actually the sort of end of suffering is more to do with the perspective on life or a view of life rather than the events of life. Normally the understanding was, if this event is not this way, if this aspect of life is fixed, then I will be probably fine, and that generally was the motivation to life, to succeed in things or to correct things and all that. And then suddenly I had a few hours where the same circumstances were still the case, but the whole view changed, and then it became, one thing was clear, that means it's possible actually just to see things differently, and everything just vanishes, the whole of suffering. And then that was when suddenly all these words, because when you grow up in India, you do hear a lot of enlightened teachings from Buddha, from Hinduism, and things which you've heard from books or stories and things like that. That's when all of it hit, and it said, look, there's a whole body of so many people, there's a whole body of understanding around this, and it's not something that I've discovered newly. And the next coming days actually were very, very intense. I needed to know what to do to make this happen again, because it was gone the next day or so, faded away, let's say, that whole understanding. And then there was this, everything overnight changed in terms of my priority for life. Like suddenly everything else that was super important took like a proper backseat, and this became the single most significant question or pursuit, let's say, in life, because if there is peace or if there's happiness, then everything is okay already. So it trumps any other search, because just the logic of what it is trumps all other seeking or search,
So
Yes.
what is the message actually? What is the message that, as a side effect, let's say, would bring some peace and happiness in life?
I think the greater the understanding that there is no doer of things is the lesser the suffering. It's a direct correlation, and it's sort of, I find it's not consistent. Like somehow there's some fluctuation there. But the days when there's a clear sort of knowing that there is no doer, or there is the absence of a doer, let's say more accurately, there's absence of a sense of a doer. Those days are pristinely peaceful and happy, and this is a direct one-to-one correlation. So from that, I think it can be fairly inferred with a fair deal of accuracy that this is the sort of the trouble-making part of the dynamic, the belief, or the functioning with this belief that I am the doer of my actions, and the other is the doer of their actions.
Okay, but that would be something that you can understand intellectually for sure, but how practically does it work for you? Because you're a businessman, you're doing a lot of practical stuff in your life. How can you together put this sentence that I'm not the doer, and then still you're doing a lot of things? What's your understanding of that paradox, seemingly paradox?
Yes. So I feel so. This is like I get asked this question sometimes. So if you're not the doer, then would you just sit and do nothing? I said. So my answer to that would be it's impossible to do nothing, because it will. If I say I can sit on a chair and do nothing, it means I'm implying that there is somebody here who can do nothing, or there is a capacity to choose between doing nothing and doing something. So everything is already been happening the way it has been. Let's say if you allow for time to be sort of a relative truth, just the belief in whether I'm doing it or not is all the change that happens. Actions will still continue as per the programming of this body-mind system. Conversations, decisions will still happen. Choices will still happen, just that there's no chooser of the choices. No individual, let's say there's no independent autonomy in this system to make a different choice or to choose a different word than what is being spoken right now. So it doesn't affect the flow of things, you know.
I mean, you mean to meant that the chooser disappears?
No, I feel there is, for the chooser to disappear, there has to be a chooser at some point. I don't think there ever was a chooser. Yeah, I think accurately, if you look at it, like it just simply removes the possibility of a chooser ever having been there. There could be an illusion of a chooser that might disappear, maybe, like a belief in the chooser, or an idea that there's a chooser and the chooser is making these decisions. I think that, yeah. I think the chooser itself is a function, it seems like, of the processes that are happening by itself, you know?
Yeah. So you mean that whatever decision is taken is the logical input. It's an output, but it becomes a new input in life. But it's the output of whatever existing state. That means all the elements in presence, all the knowledge, all the possibilities, and all that. And naturally, like we spoke about that, like the water going to the steepest path, there is a decision that is logically and naturally happening out of the context, and this decision is a new state that brings obviously change, because change is happening all the time, that's for sure. And from that change, there is a new decision that's coming from this new state, etc., etc. So it's like an avalanche. You will be seeing this like that. That means it is just happening by itself.
Yes, a cause and effect unfolding in a highly complex manner. I think what does happen is, because of the immense complexity of this, we think this is different from a computer or a mechanistic system. It's still a mechanistic system, just a biomechanic system, it feels like. It's just that the complexity is so unfathomable that we start believing that there is free will and I'm the chooser, just because it's the complexity and the variables are so immense that we can't predict it. So I feel just the fact that we can't predict something doesn't mean it's not predetermined by causality. Like, you know, these are two different questions altogether, I feel.
So, but then it brings a kind of question, it begs a question about, Vikram, are you a robot?
I have no problem. Not a silicon-based robot. I think carbon-based robot. Yeah, like this body-mind system, I think, is a carbon-based robot. However, there is another element to this: the sense, the capacity to perceive, the capacity to know, like to be aware of this conversation. I think that is a bit more mysterious, because that doesn't seem to be the result of, at least doesn't appear to be the result of biomechanical processes. Biochemical processes. It doesn't seem to be the result of that. So that could be something that's independent of this. Somehow, at least it feels like it's independent. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm asking you the question, so I'm just trying to push, to try to uproot some of the possibilities still to believe because the conclusion that you have, Vikram, in terms of the doership, the first conclusion you said there is no actual doership because everything comes from the context and it's the next action. That's the first conclusion. The second conclusion would be that actually maybe because my existence as a separate being was mainly defined by the fact that I was a chooser. But if there is no choice, where am I? Who am I? This the one that is choosing or not choosing, both options, might not exist at all. So this me that is appearing as a body, as a mind, as a emotion field, and all that, might not be really an entity, a separate being. So if it's not that, that's the second conclusion. There might be a third conclusion that might come, and the third conclusion, still I am. That you can you're sure that we are, and this I am might not be actually related to this body mind, to this specific story. So you're talking about a possibility of. You're talking about not a robot, but an entity that is only made of functioning. But where does it appear? How does it appear? How is it recognized? And we enter into the field of this intimacy that we know that we are. And this very specific possibility of being aware of the knowing, to know that there is a Vikram, that there is a Didier, that there is a world, that there is a story happening. And maybe, if I want to go further into the message of non-duality, I would say dropping the body-mind as our base for existence is only one part of the path. And the other path is rediscovering that this presence, this existence, this I am, has been there all our life, and contains, in a way, the Vikram. It contains also the Didier. Contains everything around, and that might be much more intimate and much more truly what we are. And that so that means, if I ask you what are you're not tempted to say, oh, I'm just a robot, or I'm just a mechanism, a body mind mechanism. No, this I would not qualify as a robot. It doesn't feel at all like that. So this I is actually before it is that which exists for Vikram to appear, for the story to unfold, for anything to happen. So the question from Ramana Maharshi, who am I, would first, as you pointed rightly, dissolve the false identities, the part that he says, I'm this mind, I'm this belief, this knowledge, this emotions, this whatever. And then after the process of neti-neti, of removing everything, even not letting happen the fact that, I am a robot, because even that is actually not true. Because to qualify the I and to say it's a small part that is not having any free will is another concept that doesn't need to be there. It can go away as well. And when it goes away, it remains only this pure I, which is the only thing that we know that has been there all our life. Does it make sense?
Yeah, except that it doesn't seem like I anymore, in the sense it seems more like, it's like more than I am. It's like I is, or something like that, a more yeah, that's how it feels. Like it feels like it's just sort of an all-pervasive sense, like, it's rather than pointing in some direction, like.
So the I would be clearly still a pointer, because we're using words, and so there is no way we can skip the fact that these words are always limited in time and space, and expressing something, and we're not talking about something. So we are talking about that which is before anything to happen, and by itself, I agree with you. Is not really what we are, but it's the closest, I would say, pointer to that, so that becomes impersonal in that way.
Yeah, like a hint, possibly. Yeah, like a hint, which kind of okay, something like that. Yeah.
And the whole reading of life doesn't need to be. It's totally reversed, but it doesn't need to be changed in a way, because the Vikram is still very much Vikramming, and everything can happen according to whatever programming that's been there, trauma, preferences, and wishes, and all that. Doesn't need to be specifically one way or the other way. It is just doing its own song, its own role, its own beautiful story, and then but it doesn't in any way, anything that happens in the story doesn't impair or doesn't change this sense of existence, this presence that's there all the time, does it?
So, so when it is accessible, the sense of presence, it seems immutable. It seems like it cannot interact. It's inert, or it cannot interact with the anything that's happening in life. Yeah, it seems like untouchable and unmovable. Yeah, but that is the experience of it. I don't know if it's possible to be absolutely certain that that is the case. Like what I also find is sometimes uh, access. There is access to that which we just spoke about, and also there is the seeing that things are sort of unfolding by themselves, like without individual like hubs of autonomy. And then both of these ideas seem to be irrelevant suddenly, and then it seems movement in the movement towards finding an answer stops, and then sort of there's a simply a relaxing into just a simply just like it's like if some false shape has been formed through some force fields, and then the force magnetic field is removed, and it just sort of drops as nothing matters. And also a sense that ultimately all of this is not sort of knowable by the fabric of thought or something, because it's too it's not the right format, almost like that. Like it just doesn't fit into this. Like there are more dimensions to this than what can fit in the dimensions that thought can allow, or something like that. So sort of there's a giving up also in a certain way, like not a frustrated giving up, but more like a smart giving up, I feel, like, you know. So.
Smart giving up. I don't want to keep that one. Okay, so but it's still. I mean, when I hear you, Vikram, I can feel that you sense, you smell the perfume of it, of this possibility of freedom, and for sure it's there. But it seems that there is a mysterious belief in. If I start back to your early words, you say there is this basis that is actually totally unshakable. This peace which is there all the time, and then you talk about a story, and it feels like the story is kind of disconnected from this piece. It is something that happens on top of it or outside of it, and typically it becomes very quickly a world outside there with stuff happening, and so we are talking about two things. We are talking about the space that is there, that's what I am, and the world outside there, where it's a bit messy actually. It's not like something that is easy to deal with. And this world, this story, sometimes by remembering or by getting in touch with the piece, becomes a bit more peaceful itself, and it brings a different outcome and a different reading. But my proposition is that this is by itself a possibility to get lost whole life, and to have never-ending flip-flopping between being in the world and being at the source of whatever happens, and to have these two poles, and the solution to that, the way out of this flip-flopping, is simply to try to go to a place that is not an easy one, but that will in a way solve the problem at the root. The problem of flip-flopping of the world versus so the manifested versus the unmanifested, or something like that. And my proposition is this unmanifested, this piece, this I am, that is before anything is, this very intimate evidence, is not receiving anything from outside, is not looking at a world there. It is itself modulating or telling a story of a Vikram. So the anything that happens, any word, any shape, any concept, any idea, thoughts, everything is made of this source, or that what we are. It's not coming from outside, it's not existing outside of that. We are that either at rest, that means the source, or in action, but it's the same thing. There is no two things. That's why we talk about non-duality. There is just that which expresses itself as the world and the Vikram and the Didier, or that which doesn't need to express, which is just at rest. And then we can talk about deep sleep, we can talk about death, we can talk about a lot of things. That's a different topic, but what I'm suggesting is that there is no world outside there. There is no manifestation, really. The manifestation is a modulation of the source. So my question ultimately is to check if there is anything other than yourself. I'm not talking about Vikram, but about what you really are, what we really are. This essence. Is there anything else? It seems so, but the seem is the word that's the key word there. It is pretending. It is showing, and when it's believed, when the story is so believable, like in a movie, we use often the movie analogy. That means saying that to be immersed into the movie, to be engrossed by the story, is the goal of any cinema, any home theater, anything that is for the show. And that's what Maya, the enchantress, is doing every single day, making us believe that we are actually living this story, and actually we are talking together. But is it true? That's the question of non-duality. Is it true? Or the other option is that we easily have access. This I am, this presence, I exist, I'm aware, and awareness knows that it's aware. So it's something that's very, very obvious. Is there anything else in the world? Is there anything else? Because a color, a shape, a concept, anything would appear and disappear in awareness, but much more rightly as awareness. Without awareness, there is no matter for anything to exist. How can you talk about any world, any shape, any story, unless there is the matter of awareness that is there to be the constituent, to be the only matter that exists, actually. So Vikram, what is your take on that?
It's very difficult to have a take from this perspective, actually. So if you push me, I can answer something. Yeah.
Yeah, well, my proposition is not to try to comment or to, but I am not forcing anything also. I'm just trying to describe in a very simple and logical way that anything that ever happened in Vikram's life was made of this aware presence. Because without that, there would be nothing. So let's say the aware presence, is it aware of something outside, a story, a world, a Vikram, or is it playing from its own knowledge, own matter, a story of Vikram? And then that means there has never been anything else than what we are. That means not only, as you said before, we are no thing. That means not this body, not this mind, because all that has been kind of understood to be just a process, something that has autopilot type of functioning. So from no thing back to this presence awareness that is obviously there all the time, there is a possibility of realizing, and that's the realization we are talking about, Vikram, that at the same time, we are everything, because the things that appear are made of myself. We isolate ourselves as presence awareness, and after we realize anything that appears, anything that is made of my own matter, of my own presence, of my own awareness. So there is nothing that is not me.
Yeah, so this it seems to be very. I can't find anything inside to reject what you're just saying. It seems to be like sounding very right, actually.
In your own experience, Vikram, because that's
right now. Yeah, no, of course, yeah. This is not theoretical right now. Sort of, it's supported by the current experience right now. Like what you're saying, it seems to fit into that. This kind of description. It fits into what's currently being experienced, what currently I'm experiencing, what you're saying. So this doesn't seem to be any conflict with that.
And the good news is that with this very strange, because it seems from the usual reading of life that it's a very strange, weird angle to life, but from this very strange reading, can you also see that nothing needs to change? The Vikram can still go to work and have his breakfast.
Yes, of course, yeah. Yeah, or even extreme things also can happen. Things that are defined as not good and, doesn't, yeah.
It's not about good and bad. It's not about right and wrong. It's not about achieving something. It's not about the peak experience of Vikram getting somewhere on top of the mountain. It has nothing to do with that. Actually, can we together feel that it has nothing to do with Vikram?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely Vikram doesn't determine anything in that sense. Like, Vikram is a product of some sort of seeming functioning of this rather than the other way around. So it's quite ridiculous to actually, consider the notion that Vikram has any say or can influence what's happening.
And can we, in the same breath, Vikram, see deeply that by the same token, Vikram cannot awaken? I'm pushing you buttons there.
No, yeah, I saw that. Yes. So there is there's a logical aspect to this, which is fairly straightforward, but there is another aspect, emotional aspect to this, which is sort of actually confronting this inference or this conclusion, directly confronting it. One is to say, yeah, logically it makes sense, obviously, that then Vikram has no say or there's nothing, it doesn't make sense for Vikram to be awakened in that sense. But there's also a deeper, like, sort of, it's like knowing there is no doer and actually fully accepting there is no doer. Like,
exactly.
Yes, it's a very
It
different intensity
exactly.
among.
That's the bottom of the pit. It's a huge. I mean, if you look at that, it's very deep, and the only possibility to reach the final conclusion is to go to the bottom of the pit and to, as exactly you said, to accept fully this possibility in all aspects, including the sublime aspect of waking up to your real nature. So that if to clarify the what I'm pointing at, it doesn't mean that they could not be waking up, but it's not Vikram waking up. Let's say, could we together now try to see that it might be this source, this life, starting to know itself directly and not being anymore hypnotized by a specific form and shape and story and all that. So let's say life wakes up to itself.
Yeah, that sounds fairly accurate. It seems like the flow of life includes sort of events that create a sense of a belief of personal doership and then a seeming entity, and then the same forces of life start to decompose or undo that belief system and the structures around it and the side effects of that, and at some point through the events of life it gets undone, and that is described in books as awakening or enlightenment or whatever. All the while, nobody doing it. It's very funny.
Which is so that means it makes obvious that nothing has ever been done by Vikram or by Didier or whatever. It's always all this source that is at work, and this source is not something like a god in the sky or far away or unknowable or in a way mysterious, because it is not different from our own experience, from our checking, from this very intimate sense of existing, sense of being. We could call it beingness. That's there all. For anything to happen, beingness is first there, and that's something that is intimate, that is obvious, that is simple to. Simply, it's not acknowledged. It's never something that is recognized in the whole life, because never in our education, in our society, in our day-to-day activities, this simplicity of the only thing that is the only matter of the story, presence, aware presence, is pointed. So the dream, because we talk about the dream, is the movie, and being identified with the movie, and being inside the movie, and being a small part of the movie, because it's not even that we are the whole movie, we are the Vikram part of the movie, or the Didier part of the movie. But so it is a kind of multiple identification and multiple forgetfulness. And the message is just saying, remember, hey, you're in, it's a metaphor, huh? But you're in a cinema theater, you're on a seat and you're watching something. It's a metaphor because there is no, that's what we pointed before, there is no two sides. But at least in the waking up process, it is what it's pointing at, saying, remember, you're not Vikram, you're that which knows that there is a Vikram, that there is a Didier, that there is a story. And this source, this essence, this intimacy doesn't exist in time and space, is not part of the movie. It's there outside of time, outside of space, and within that, as that time and space unfold. so I used two words. I said within and as, and the within was, in my view, your interpretation of the thing, because clearly you have the total clarity on that as a ground of being, as what you really are. But there is a feeling that within that there is a world that exists and that is showing up and disappearing, and there's a Vikram that's showing up and disappearing. And my extra mile I'm proposing here, Vikram, is that instead of using the word within, we use the word as. That means that the source is not something to receive, a recipient, or a capacity only. It is a capacity, but it is an active, the active matter of the story. That means there is no sight, or there is no sound, or there is no thought, or there is no emotion that appear from outside there. They appear from the same matter, from the same awareness at rest that becomes manifested, and then aware of a sound. The off, you can cross it. Awareness and sound are the two sides of the same coin. Sound is made of awareness, exactly like a pot and the clay. You cannot remove. You can use pot as a tag, and you can use clay, but they describe exactly the same thing. So in this case, a sound, a sight, a taste. I mean, all the description of what we call a world are made of the clay, which is this presence awareness, and that's all the message of non-duality. There is no complication. It is damn simple.
Yeah, but also quite extraordinary.
So and to go back to what you just said before about the depth of this understanding, it feels like it sinks from something that's logical, that's conceptual, that works, that's harmonious also, and that feels right, and that feels practical. So all the levels of looking at this new angle, but that's also much more than that, and the much more than that, it is that not only feels true, but that is true. And when there is a jump from feel to is, and then resting in this evidence, is the quantum leap that we are talking about.
It's like such a relief, actually, to not carry your supposed life on your shoulders all the time in your head.
It is totally.
Actually, like right now, I can confidently say there is no problems, right? It seems like that. So I don't feel any internal movements towards grasping something like as from a need, more like a light movement of attention here and there, like. So what is it? So what? Also, obviously I have clear memory that this is experienced time to time, like this kind of freedom, and not really, there's no worries, there's nothing to do really in a compulsive sense. So what is it that causes this movement back? It's like a hallucination grips over the system, and then you're suddenly into this whole thing, and as if it's real and everything is like real, and then something happens and suddenly you realize it's a hallucination, and then everything rests again. So there's some sort of getting sucked back, or the illusion, let's say, taking over again and again. It seems that's I feel a good analogy to give, like, yeah.
It is a great analogy, and it's also very great to say that if you are in a movie and the movie is so gripping and so interesting that you might get lost into the movie, and we're talking about getting lost in the story of Vikram and inhabiting the Vikram's body and the head, and being a separate being around outside world and all that. So that's the gripping part of the story. So what makes this movie so gripping, so hypnotizing, because it's a form of hypnotism. I mean, if I had the exact answer to that, I would be famous and very rich. So I have options. I have
hypothesis.
Exactly, different possibilities, because it's also not interestingly enough, over the years I concluded that what's gripping for one story is not the same for another story, and that's why it seems to be a bit complicated to go to the core, because typically there would be elements that would be the fact that the letting go we are actually exploring right now, the total surrender to this new possibility, is not happening fully. And why is that? So I can give you dozens of reasons, from trauma that are there, that are, as soon as there is this openness is presenting itself, there is something feeling so real, so solid within the story as a trauma that is actually keeping all the attention there. It's kind of, it is a kind of center that cannot dissolve by itself, and that can be very strong. And in some stories, it is a problem. And Ramesh Balsekar was in this case, when he was sensing that there would be some possibility of getting stuck in the trauma, he was just advising the people there to see a specialist, somebody who can do something about that, you see. So there is no shame into solving that first. That's one thing, but that's not the only possibility. There are hundreds of I would say there are infinite numbers of possibility of getting this hypnotism, and there is only one possibility of losing it. It's the same movement for all of us. It's the same letting go. So you see. So what is in the Vikram story, the possibility? In Didier's story, it was very much the sense of doership that got dismantled by Ramesh. So that was interesting in that way. That was one of the main hook, that was gripping, that was keeping me, keeping this me as a separate being, until it got in a way dissolved. But something else could have come at that time.
What was the main hook? Sorry, I missed that. What was the main hook for you? You said
the sense of doership. The sense of doership. That's the main tool that Ramesh is using to try to, because he says at the end there are many ways that identification and belief that we exist as separate being in the world is there, but the number one from all is the fact that I can lift my hand and I cannot lift your hand. And then that's the proof that I exist separated from you. But if this is this trick, because it's a magical trick, if this magical trick
that's a false proof. It's not good enough proof.
No, it's not good enough. But it seems to be pretty convincing for most of the people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if this trick is revealed to be just a magical trick, then often that's just enough And in my case, it was just enough because I had no major trauma in my life, no major wish to become or to do or to, and I didn't invest. And that's another hook, Vikram. I didn't invest 20 years in Vipassana because when you do this investment, you want to have something out of it. You know, you want to have return on an investment, and that can be very much another possibility of roaming
Reinforcing
around
the
forever.
dynamic. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Reinforcing the dynamic. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Or you could have simply some stories that are still roaming in the background, false story. I mean, stories that are not explored, and that's why my number one tool is what I call exploration. Why is it exploration? Exploration is because we are not trying to change anything. We are just looking at all our assumptions about ourselves, about the world, about whatever is, and looking at it and asking the question: Are you true? Are you real? So sense of doership. I look at the sense of doership. I do my little exploration around that, and or big one, and then I look at it and I say, oh, it's a trick. It's not real. Okay, next, and I go to something else, and something else can be very much what we just pointed before. Is there a world outside there? And that's another exploration to be done because as long as there is this belief that there is a world outside, and then there is somebody, a witness or a source that is that which knows the world outside there, it's still fragmentation, and it's still very much a possibility of getting stuck into the movie. But when the exploration about the world outside there is down to the bottom, deep bottom, and the magical trick is revealed again, then the separation between that which sees and that which is seen doesn't exist anymore. There is just one thing, and it's not a thing. It's a verb. It is something that is at the same time so intimate and so nothing to do with Vikram and Didier. So to answer your question further, it would take hours and hours because I would take all the cases where there could be some hypnotism, some hallucination. I call that hallucination, and then it would be a nice book or maybe a kind of cookbook to go somewhere. But the good news, I mean, there's a good news is that in my experience, for each of the stories, or let's say a Vikram story, there is only usually one or two strong major belief to be dissolved, and then there is rarely a cleaning work to be done all around. It's usually to do with this or with that or with whatever hook is there, and but it's different in each case. That's why this conversation is really useful. You were pointing at the beginning of the conversation that it seems more powerful when you talk to somebody. That's exactly the point, because this so-called somebody, which is not somebody else, which is yourself talking to yourself, would actually try to find out where is the hook. Which a book, a general book on non-duality or whatever will not do, because it will be just say, oh, it is like this, it is like that, and blah, blah, blah. Missing the point sometimes where you get stranded. So Vikram, I didn't answer your question, but I clarified the fact that yes, this again, flip flopping is a good word for that. This flip flopping between I know it's clear and it's there, and suddenly the dream is back full force, and why is it happening? It's happening only because of a set, maybe one or two or three set of beliefs that can recreate this illusion of a movie and this reality of being real, and it doesn't need to be. So to conclude this part, I would suggest that you look at the whole description that we have been doing, and in general that you have through Roger or through whoever you want to.
Raji as well, yeah.
Yeah, and you look at not what you understand, because that's not interesting. You look at where you get stuck, where it seems to be a problem, or it seems to be unclear, or it seems to be not alive. If, for example, as an example, if I say the world doesn't exist by itself, it's just a modulation of awareness, and you might say, yeah, I understand, it makes sense, but it's not so clear, and it's not obvious, and it requires an effort to go there. That means there is a something to be cleaned up in a way, until it is it's exactly that. It is so obvious, it is so clear that I don't have to even think about it anymore. So this possibility of getting again stuck into the dream is gone, and maybe that will be the only requirement. So I would just advise not to repeat for yourself forever what you understood and what is non-duality and what is your reading, but you look at where it gets actually a bit complicated, and usually that's where the hook is.
That's cool. Sounds very nice.
Okay, shall we leave it here, and then we explore a bit further,
Yeah.
maybe another
Part
time,
two.
and then we see what we get out
Yes.
of that. Okay then.
Sounds good. Didier, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. It's
My
been very
great
nice.
pleasure, Vikram. See you then.